Nice.
Punishment! Blink!
Into the wind!
Shine.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. My name's ArcRevner and I like to play games, and today we're going to be talking about Kazuha, and how to build a proper team only using 4-star characters. We're going to be talking about how to build Kazuha as a DPS and how to support him using elemental reactions from all the 4 stars that are currently available. Although Kazuha is definitely more oriented towards being a support character with a full elemental mastery build, you can build him as a DPS and he can work surprisingly well if you have the right characters to support him. So that's what this entire video is going to be breaking down, what characters synergize well with Kazuha, and will allow you to create as many elemental reactions as possible. And at the end of the video, I'm actually going to show you guys a run with the 4-star characters in Spiral Abyss Floor 12, Floor 1, just to show that he actually does do pretty well with endgame content with the right supports. I was actually really impressed by just how good of a main DPS Kazuha actually is, even at C0. All that being said, we do need to get a few things out of the way, so let's talk about it real quick. Like I said, this video is going to be focusing only on 4-star characters, so we won't be using a single 5-star character as a support for Kazuha in this video. But we also won't be using a few 4-star characters such as Amber. Amber is really just the black sheep of Genshin Impact. She's just not quite as good as a support as characters like Xiangling and Bennett, and so we just won't be using her for this video. Also, despite being on Raid Up currently on Kazuha's banner, we won't be using Razor, strictly because he is far more of a main DPS, and is way more inclined to be a physical carry, so he just won't be doing very well with elemental reactions and supporting Kazuha as the main DPS. And unfortunately, by proxy, that also means that Chongyun, who's typically built with physical DPS in mind, will not be used in this video. I do think that you can use her, but I just think that the other supports are a little bit better for Kazuha specifically. And that brings us to the last 2 units that will not be used in this video. I'm sorry, Noelle, I do love you, but unfortunately Geo just does not synergize very well with Kazuha since he wants to be causing as much swirls as possible. I do think that you can use characters that are Geo, especially in a double Geo comp, but that would be the exception, not the rule, and is far less flexible and can't deal with nearly as many different types of enemies. Not to mention, Ningguang is a fantastic main DPS unit. Like, she actually rivals 5 stars, so I would much rather have her on a separate team than have her competing with Kazuha for the role of main DPS. Alright, now let's move on to Kazuha's build for this video as a main DPS. You'll notice that his attack is actually pretty low at 1423, but that's alright because he's still getting a lot of damage from Swirl thanks to his elemental mastery, and his crit rate and crit damage that I have built on him. His elemental mastery is at 382, which gives him an additional 256.6% Swirl. He has 34.9% crit rate, 158.8% crit damage, 129.8% energy recharge, and 61.6% Anemo bonus damage. As for his weapon, I'm currently using the free-to-play craftable weapon, the Iron Sting, and also keep in mind that this is only at level 70 out of 90, so it can still be ascended 1 more time and leveled up 20 more times, so this isn't actually its full damage capacity. As for his artifact set, I'm using a full Viridescent set because I think that this is his best set by far. You can also sub out any of these artifacts for elemental mastery main stats and you'll still do very well. As for constellations, I do have constellations, but I have not activated them yet, so he is running at C0. And as for talents, they are currently all at level 9. I personally recommend keeping them all balanced because they all affect all aspects of his kit. Example being, if you don't level up his main attacks, then his plunge damage on his skill will do way less damage. That was a lot of information to cover, and we haven't even gotten to the teammates yet. But there is something that I want to say before we move on to the rest of the video, and that is actually a huge thank you. We hit over 3,000 subscribers, even though I had to take a long unexpected hiatus. Unfortunately, life outside of YouTube got really difficult for a long period of time, and I had to take a significant break. However, I honestly really missed you guys. My followers are really nice and supportive, and I really miss making content for you guys, so here I am. I'm kind of scared about posting this video because since I've been gone for a while, the YouTube algorithm is probably going to be very, very angry at me. So if you guys want to help support this video and my channel, please feel free to leave a like and comment down below. It really would help me out. Alright, and with that all out of the way, let's get into the heart of the video. So, who should you pick? We're going to start out with the Hydro characters and work our way from there. So we're going to start out with Barbara, who's a 4-star free-to-play character. Everyone gets Barbara. miHoYo is still giving out her to any new players, so she's going to be very accessible to any and every player. Barbara tends to get a bad rap because she tends to fall off in endgame content. However, she is still very useful, especially if you have Thrilling Tales equipped onto her. This will simultaneously increase her healing because she scales off HP, and it will also increase the attack of the next character that swaps onto the field after Barbara by a whopping 48%. This is a huge increase to Kazuha's damage, or just about any team member's damage. Not to mention, this weapon is a 3-star in the gacha, so if you're summoning fairly regularly, you're gonna end up getting this to refinement rank 5 at some point or another. The only real issue with using Barbara is the fact that she applies wet to your entire team whenever she uses her elemental skill. This can get really tricky when you get frozen by enemies, however it is something that you can work around with enough practice. This also is kind of nice though, because since you are applying wet and using Kazuha, then you can use it to make an elemental swirl straight away, without even having Barbara on the field. Overall, she's a pretty decent character, and I think that she synergizes well with Kazuha. Next up, we have everyone's favorite Hydro lad, Xingqiu. He's a 4-star character that you can only get from the gacha, but he is definitely worth pulling for. You've probably heard this a million times by now. You should definitely summon for Xingqiu because he is one of the best 4-star supports in the entire game. He will increase Kazuha's damage significantly because now whenever you auto-attack, you're also going to be getting his ranged swords, which simultaneously deal a lot of damage and apply wet to all nearby enemies. On top of this, Xingqiu's elemental skill has one of the highest damage ceilings in the game, while simultaneously giving you damage resistance and healing you whenever one of the swords around him breaks. However, like Barbara, his skill applies wet, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage, so you will have to play accordingly. However, you can slap him into just about any melt or vaporize comp, and he's going to significantly boost your damage. 10 out of 10 character, would recommend. Alright, now let's go ahead and move on to the Pyro units. So we're going to start out with Xiangling. She's a free-to-play unit that you can get pretty early on in the game just by beating floor 3 of Spiral Abyss. And although she is free-to-play, she's actually still one of the best support units in the game. I'm actually pretty mad at myself for not building her sooner because she is one of the best Pyro appliers in the game, period. And when you pair that with her low skill cooldown, and her Pyro Nado which just keeps ticking, you have the recipe for an A+ character easily. Also, if you do manage to get constellations on her, she actually does get even better as a Pyro support unit because she can shred enemy resistance to Pyro, as well as buff Pyro units while her Pyro Nado is going around. If you haven't already built Xiangling, I really recommend you start building her now. And honestly, you don't even have to invest too much into her, just level up her Pyro Nado and Goba and you should be golden. Alright, and next up we have Yanfei, who is a 4-star gacha character. I was actually considering not putting Yanfei on this list because she is more of a DPS unit. However, I came to quickly realize that she's actually very good as a sub DPS because both her skill and burst reset her stacks for her charged attacks, so she's actually able to deal a lot of damage whenever she swaps onto the field. This paired with the fact that she is a catalyst user means that all of her attacks are going to be Pyro, which is amazing when you pair with a character like Kazuha because you're just able to apply Pyro whenever you need it. Essentially, there's never going to be a moment where you aren't going to be able to swirl. The only real issue that I have with Yanfei is that you are going to have to invest a little bit more into her to actually be getting damage to make her worthwhile, compared to other units where you can just kind of stick them on the team, not worry about their damage, but they provide other buffs. But at the end of the day, I still think Yanfei is a really good addition to any Kazuha team. It just depends on how you want to use her. Alright, and next we have Bennett. Of course we have Bennett on this list. He's on every list. But it's pretty warranted because he is one of the best support units in the entire game, because he can just buff your whole team's damage whenever he uses his burst, as well as providing healing. He's also a great Pyro applier because he has low skill cooldowns, so he's just a really well-rounded unit, and that's why everyone seems to love him so much. I really slept on him in the beginning of the game, but I've woken up. Bennett is a great character. Please don't make the same mistakes that I did at the beginning of the game. And if you do decide to build him, make sure you level up his level as high as you can so you can get high base stat, his weapon as high as you can so you can get more base stat, and level up his burst so that you can deal more damage to all enemies whenever an enemy is inside of his burst. Alright, and moving on, we have the Cryo characters, and we're going to start with the free-to-play character, Kaeya. Kaeya is completely overlooked by the Genshin Impact community. He is so good, and he is completely free. Kaeya is so useful for Kazuha because he is able to quickly apply Cryo just about at any time because of his low cooldowns, and similarly to Xiangling, his burst circles around him so you can move freely with Kazuha and inflict Cryo to any enemy in your near vicinity. Even if you just slap him onto the team with very little investment, just the fact that he's constantly applying elements will be extremely useful. However, even I really underestimated just how much damage he can actually do with investment. It's all little hits here and there, but it's happening so consistently that it does add up. Since everyone has him, I definitely recommend trying him out. Alright, and next up we have the 4-star gacha character, Chongyun. Chongyun really surprised me. I was pleasantly surprised to see just how well he pairs with Kazuha, especially at C0. So the thing about Chongyun is that whenever he utilizes his skill, any character that uses a pole arm, a sword, or a claymore has all of their normal attack damage converted into cryo damage. So essentially this means you're going to have a Cryo Kazuha whenever you use them with Chongyun. This does restrict your team building, however it is very useful in things such as freeze comps so that you can constantly keep enemies frozen. Or if you're running a Pyro character in your team as well, then you can quickly hit with a normal attack, it'll deal cryo damage, and then you can swap to a Pyro unit. And since Kazuha can give himself cryo bonus damage whenever he swirls cryo, it's actually pretty nice. Definitely one of the more interesting picks. Alright, and next up we have Diona. Diona is fantastic. And not because she's a great damage dealer, because she's not, she's one of the worst, but she fits so many roles on the team that she's extremely valuable. She's one of the fastest cryo appliers in the game, she has a very thick shield if you build her with HP, and she can heal you. And on top of all that, if you do manage to get her to C6, she will give you an additional 200 elemental mastery whenever you're inside her burst. This is amazing on Kazuha specifically because it'll increase his swirl damage, and since we're running him as a main DPS, his elemental mastery is actually a lot lower than what he normally would have with a typical support build. All in all, Diona is an excellent team member to Kazuha and will definitely help him with survivability and elemental mastery gain if you manage to get her at C6. Alright, and last up for Cryo we have Rosaria. Rosaria is on his banner currently, so you're very likely to have her if you ended up pulling for Kazuha. And that's actually a really good thing because she is one of his best supports. Like the other characters mentioned, she does have a very quick cryo application with her skill, and it has a very short cooldown so you can use it pretty regularly. But what probably sets her apart from the other cryo characters is her burst. She's able to slam down her spear into wherever the enemy is, and it'll continuously pulsate cryo damage, which is extremely helpful when you're trying to swirl as much as possible. Having this cryo application off-field is super valuable, and it actually does a substantial amount of damage so long as you can keep enemies grouped by it. Put her and Bennett, both from Kazuha's banner, on the same team, and you're going to be doing pretty well. Overall, Rosaria's a really solid character, and if you picked her up, then you should definitely build her. Alright, and that brings us to Electro, and we're going to start with another free-to-play character, Lisa. Honestly, Lisa really shocked me. Lisa is surprisingly powerful, and honestly a really excellent support for a character like Kazuha. As I mentioned earlier, Catalyst users do have an advantage because all of their damage is elemental, and Electro specifically can bounce from enemy to enemy. On top of this, Lisa is one of the only characters that has a built-in defense shred whenever she uses her burst. Defense shred is extremely rare in Genshin Impact, so the fact that it's on a free character is really nice. It lets you hit a little bit harder no matter what the enemy resists. And on top of all this, Lisa actually hits very hard with one of the highest damage scaling skills in the game. She does prefer to be played with a shielder, but you can get around this, and overall she's an excellent pick for a Kazuha team. Next up we have 4-star gacha character Fischl, or the princess, and it's like, I'm not even gonna try to say that. Fischl is a phenomenal character. She's been really highly rated ever since the beginning of the game, and that's because she can apply most of her damage off-field while applying Electro. Fischl still is extremely relevant in the game today, even inside the meta, and I think that she is a very safe bet to build. She has high damage scaling, she's good on elemental mastery teams, she allows you to run around wherever you need to and still apply Electro. She's just an extremely flexible and powerful character. If you have her on your account or you managed to get her as a free-to-play character way back when during the Reconciled Star event, then you should definitely start building her now. Up last for Electro, or at least until we get Electro Traveler in 1.7/2.0, we have Beidou. I was actually really shocked that she wasn't on his banner to begin with, considering how closely their story elements are tied together, but even though she isn't currently on rate up, she is one of his better support options. She counters any hits that Kazuha just does not want to take, she gives him a shield, she allows Electro to bounce between enemies so that she can apply Electro wherever you need it, and she actually hits really hard when you well time her counter. Although Beidou is a little bit trickier to use than some of the other characters mentioned, and you do have to make sure that she has enough energy recharge, overall she's a really good unit, and if you learn how to play her, she will be great. Alright, and last but not least, we have our one and only Anemo 4-star gacha character, at least until we get Sayu in Inazuma, Sucrose. Also, just as a side note, I'm using Amber just to start the elemental reactions, we're not really using her for any damage. Now, hear me out, it may sound a little bit redundant to have two swirling characters on the same team, but Sucrose actually worked extremely well with Kazuha. Whenever something is out of reach for him to swirl, Sucrose is there to add extra crowd control and boost your elemental mastery to your entire team. So many people were saying that if you already have Sucrose or Venti that you just shouldn't pull for Kazuha, but in actuality, they work very well together. Not to mention, Sucrose also acts as a battery, and will provide Kazuha with as much energy as he needs. Overall, Sucrose is an excellent character in her own right, and she just amplifies Kazuha even further. Whew! Okay, well, that is all of the characters that I would personally recommend using with Kazuha. If you're still here and watching the video and are enjoying it so far, please feel free to leave me a like down below and leave a comment. I genuinely want to know if this kind of content is helpful to you guys. For the next segment of the video, I'm going to be showing you guys different team builds, different elemental reactions that you can use, different things that you can build around in order to make sure that Kazuha is dealing a lot of damage as your main damage dealer. I'm not going to speak through each one because I actually designed these all to be more like templates than anything. Essentially, you can switch and swap characters however you like, but I wanted to show you guys these specific builds so that you guys can have something to work off of if you are struggling with team building. They are going to be labeled below if you want to shuffle through them and see what works best for you, but I do kind of recommend looking through all of them just so you have a better understanding of all these team builds, and how flexible Kazuha is as a unit. I'll pop back in closer to the end of the video so that we can discuss floor 12 of the Abyss, and then I'll give my final thoughts on Kazuha as a main DPS. Alright, see you in a few. Alright, and I'm back. I hope you guys enjoyed that and found it useful, but I know that that was just a domain, so I wanted to take on some harder content in the end game. So we're going to be challenging the first floor of Spiral Abyss 12, using Kazuha as our main DPS, and our sub DPSs are going to be Rosaria, Bennett, and Xiangling. Honestly, I was pretty confident that I was going to be able to do this, however, I had no idea that I was going to do it so quickly. My run with this team ended up being just about 1 minute, leaving a whole 2 minutes for whatever other team that you would have on the other side to get 3 stars. This is really impressive from a character standpoint because this means that even though Kazuha was only using a level 70 free-to-play weapon, and was only using 4-star supports, and all of those 4-star supports were only level 70, and all of those 4-star supports were only using level 70 weapons besides Bennett, who was using a level 90 Festering Desire, I gotta say I'm pretty impressed. Although I have to admit that Kazuha is far more suited to being a support character with full elemental mastery, having a full DPS character version of him is actually completely possible so long as you have the supports to back him up. All that being said, I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, please leave me a comment and like down below. Like I said, the YouTube algorithm is going to be really mad that I've been gone for so long. I really appreciate all the support that I've gotten on my past videos, and I hope to make some more soon. But my schedule is really erratic right now, so if you want to make sure you catch them, then please hit the notification bell. I'm not saying that just to get you to do that. I don't know when I'm going to post next. But anyway, that's all for now. I'm probably going to make some more Kazuha content in the future, so feel free to stick around and let me know what you think. Alright, until next time. Bye guys. Best wishes.